follow the same protocol that we did at the last week's briefing. And for those of you that weren't here, what we did was we allowed the chief to go ahead and provide a statement, and then immediately afterwards we'll open up to questions. I'm going to be walking around with the microphone, and then whoever has questions, just raise your hand. We'll allow you to ask your question, and then we'll move on to the next question. And then afterwards we'll go ahead and we'll just wrap it up. Okay? And here's the chief.
Thank you for being here. Mike Soelberg, Chief of Police with Gilbert Police Department. As I stated, thank you for being here. With our community as safe as it is, I have not had to do a lot of these press conferences, as many of you may have noticed. Going forward, we'd like this to be more of a relaxed setting, so we can continue to develop an ongoing conversation about the teen violence investigations. It's been a busy week, and I want to get straight to your questions, but before we begin that dialogue, I want to emphasize that we recognize any arrests made in Gilbert-related cases likely won't lessen the pain and hurt that the family and friends of Preston Lord are experiencing. It is our hope, however, that these arrests will bring some level of healing for any victims of teen violence in Gilbert. As I shared last week, our officers and detectives have been working tirelessly around the clock for weeks and months. Their efforts have been behind the scenes, but now the community is starting to see the results of their incredible hard work. I also want to acknowledge the valuable contributions that have come from the community and the media in the form of tips and supplying new evidence to us. Some of our investigations were previously inactivated due to lack of sufficient evidence, including the ability of some victims to not be able to identify their alleged assailants. This has been rectified by the community supplying additional supporting information to us, so thank you, we appreciate it. There are still a few cases where victims previously declined to assist with prosecution. We absolutely respect those decisions. We also will continue to ask that if anyone has knowledge of a past or potential future acts of teen violence, please come forward and share what you know. Having said that, please, we all need to pause and remember not to circulate information unless it has been verified, verified again, and even verified again. There are many innocent people, along with the victims and their families, who are being hurt by inaccurate information and harmful speculation online. There are even small business owners and residents who have been hurt and or harassed by inaccurate information being shared online. Please be cautious and again, verify to the best of your ability the information you are sharing online. As stated yesterday, we made 3 arrests related to aggravated assaults which occurred in November and December of 2022. While we did make arrests in these cases, both of those cases remain active investigations. We will continue to seek justice for all of our victims as we seek to hold those accountable for their violent acts. Now I'll take any questions you may have.
Chief, do you have...
Just can you get the microphone for you? You can teach me.
Chief, thanks for holding this again. I just wanted to ask you a couple questions about the total of arrests that we made. What is the total arrests so far since the start of January?
The total of arrests?
Yeah.
We had 10 prior to last week. We had 1 earlier this week and 3 yesterday related to teen violence. We did have 2 additional yesterday that were related to additional investigations that came from that. So an additional 4 arrests this week plus the 10 last week.
Gotcha. And then I did want to ask about one of those cases, as I load up the name here, 22-year-old Tyler Strochia, not sure how to pronounce that last name. accused of selling marijuana and other narcotics and sexual conduct with a minor. How is he tied to potential teen violence?
So in conducting an investigation into a threats case involving some teen violence, from that investigation, that led us to investigate Mr. Trocchia for the crimes that you just alluded to. And so we concluded that investigation. That threats investigation is still active. However, the investigation that came from the other information we came across, we made those arrests for both the sex crimes and the drug-related charges.
Hi, Chief. Alexis with Arizona's Family again.
Hi.
Are any of the people that you've arrested in these Gilbert investigations at all being investigated for other crimes in Queen Creek?
So I can't comment on Queen Creek's investigations, whether it's the Preston Lord or any other investigations that they may have. I can talk to you about our cases and the cases that we've involved in. In the individuals that, in the arrests we made in all of our teen investigations, we're looking to see if they're connected in any way to any of the other investigations. We will continue to do so. We will provide that information to you as we make those connections. As far as that bigger picture that we've talked about in the past of what's that overall connection between any of our cases regarding the Gilbert goons, that investigation is still ongoing, and that information will come out of any connections that we may or may not be able to correlate to these acts of violence to that group or any other individuals or groups.
Kind of a follow-up question.
Whoever's got the mic.
Can you kind of share how many active cases related to teen violence is Gilbert Police investigating? And then I know that you guys also have a website where you guys have dedicated all the information. The number of active investigations was also taken down, so just wondering why.
So the active investigations, we talked last week, 5 reopened investigations, 5 new investigations. That's not all inclusive of all of our investigations. Obviously, there's more crime, there's more investigations going on besides just these teen violence. But the numbers that I just talked about, the 5 and the 5 reopened and active, new cases, those all stem from allegations of group teen violence, not just a one-on-one individual. So there may be other active cases where it's just 2 people involved. Those numbers that I provided to you before and again today are based on group teen violence that we've seen in Gilbert.
Hi, Chief. Jackie with Telemundo, Arizona. A follow-up question to that. Could you clarify how far back does this investigations go?
So we have looked at the last 2 years specifically, from roughly February of 2022. That doesn't mean that's all we looked at. We are looking at all of our teen violence cases to see if there are additional information that could help us with these investigations. The investigations that I spoke to over the last 3 months since December are regarding the group teen violence. And so we have looked back for 2 years specifically in those. Obviously, we started with the individuals that we knew were involved in some of these incidents. We looked at their involvement to see if there's any other cases that we may have connected to them. So we're not limiting it just to a 2-year view. If we find additional information that takes us to other investigations, we'll continue to do so.
Chief, can you confirm at this point whether or not the Gilbert goons are considered a gang?
That will be part of our investigation in the Gilbert Goons investigation. That is ongoing. I can tell you we've made progress in that investigation. And just to remind everybody, that investigation not only involves Gilbert PD, but this state DPS, the Get 'em Task Force, Queen Creek Police Department, Mesa Police Department, Chandler Police Department, Pinal County Sheriff's Office. Their focus is identifying whether we can or cannot identify any of these individuals as a gang, regardless of what that gang name is. In addition to establishing that connection, are there any connections? While they may not be part of a gang, how are they connected? Are they affiliates? Are they just know each other? So that I can't provide to you yet. That will be part of our investigation into the overall involvement of all these individuals to see if they are connected.
Chief, this is kind of a
series of questions, they're all related. How many videos, how many attack videos do you currently possess?
I don't have the number right off the top of my head, but I'll give you some of the examples. So a lot of the videos that we received, part of why it's taken time to review each of those, we have to make, is it a new video? Is it from a same incident, just a different camera? Some of them are obviously the exact same ones we had previously received. What we've seen, as I mentioned last week, out of our 5 new cases, I believe 4 of those came from videos that we had never seen before. And in those situations, we had one that a report was made, and that's one of the arrests we made from the garage incident, where a report was made, but we were unable to, we exhausted all leads, we didn't have any suspect information. We received a video in regards to that in end of December, and that's one example to where we were able to make an arrest. In addition to that, one of the other arrests that we made yesterday was in regards to a crime that was, there was no call for service, there was no report, we had no idea about it until the victim courageously came forward and told us that he was a victim in that case. There is a very short video on that case as well, but in that situation, it was never reported to the police department. Once we received it, we quickly, actively worked that investigation. We're still working on that investigation, but we did make some arrests in that investigation.
So do you have an idea? I'm kind of curious, the world of the attack videos, how many separate videos you think I mean, is it a dozen? Is it 20 at this point? I mean, I know how many I've looked at.
Yeah, obviously, you've seen a lot, but also we have to come back to what our Gilbert investigation, because some of the videos that we've seen, some that have been shared with us, I think I mentioned this last week, where both us and Mesa PD received a video. And initially, we both thought it was ours, and we were both working, and that's where we've got to communicate with our other agencies to make sure we're checking with each other. Is this ours? Is it yours? Do you have any leads? Do we have any leads? And making sure we're sharing that information. As you alluded to, a lot of videos came out after Preston was killed. Unfortunately, it was after Preston. And so in those situations, we have looked at all those videos, connected them to our cases that we've been able to connect to. We have not shared all the videos that we have received because in some of those situations, we've identified the parties involved, so we haven't needed to go to the public to ask for assistance in some of those. But in those situations, as you saw in December and January, that we have shared those videos where we need your assistance. And if we have more, we'll come back to you with additional.
Hi, Chief Heidi Hommel, KTAR. Are you worried about any of the suspects you're still looking into fleeing?
Just like this case is no different than any other criminal investigation. You've always have that risk. The information we have does not cause me concern, because even if somebody fled, we can still file the charges. It's just a matter of how do we get them back here and hold them accountable. So we are actively working our investigations. When we make an arrest, if you guys have all seen the Form 4s, the arrest records, we document any concerns we have that someone may flee or not, or any other situations or statements they had indicated where they might flee.
These cases of teen-on-teen violence have obviously impacted a lot of families here in the community. The mayor here in Gilbert says that she will not be running for re-election because she's choosing to focus on her family. You kind of touched on this last time. You're a dad yourself. How has this impacted you?
It's stressful, you know. It's a, sorry. Obviously, I live here. I've lived here for 29 years. It's my home. While I'm the chief, you know, I am part of the community. I want to make sure my kids are safe. I want to make sure everyone's kids are safe. And that's why we have continued to actively work all of these cases to exhaust leads. There may be situations where we can't make an arrest for one reason or the other, but we will do everything we can to make sure our community continues to be safe, not only for my kids, but yours and our visitors. That's what Gilbert's been known for, is being a safe community. That's why our economy and our entire community has been kind of on that shining hill of being an excellent community. We still are an excellent, safe community. Unfortunately, we've had these acts of violence. We are doing everything we can to put an end to it. Part of what we need to do as well, as we've talked about our community involvement, I mentioned it last week, and you saw the town hall and our subcommittee from the council have been meeting. We're looking for solutions, but it's not just a police department solution. It's a community solution to how can we resolve some of these incidents.
Hi Chief, Lindsay Regas at Fox 10. The In-N-Out case on August 18th. I just got off the phone with the mother of the victim. She wants to know, why did it take so long to get to where we are now? We have those 2 indictments, but her son's case was closed, it was reopened, we had those 2 arrests and 2 indictments.
Yeah, if I could clarify, it wasn't closed, it was inactivated. So the information we had, and we discussed this a little bit last week, that we had initial name, we could not establish probable cause for that individual. And we had some conflicting information. We did not have, we received the video, and that's where I mentioned we shared the video with our SROs, hoping that they would be able to identify some of those individuals. At that point, when they were unable to, we inactivated the case. It wasn't closed, it was still open until, just like any inactivated case. If we receive additional information, we will reopen the case and try to pursue justice for our victims. So same thing in that situation, where we inactivated based on what we had. When we started reviewing all of our cases, that was one that was at the top of the list of when we saw that we could get that out to the public and get additional information. As soon as we did, we got that information, we were able to make an arrest. And keep in mind, it's still an active investigation. We are still looking for additional people.
I wanted to ask you, in the court statement, you went to juvenile court regarding that 17-year-old that was arrested. The courts were telling us they're going to charge that juvenile as an adult. Your reaction to that?
So that's out of my purview to make those decisions. We often see that with the courts will look at the severity of the arrest or the incident, how close are they to being 18, and that's for the courts to decide. If the individual is still a juvenile, we have to treat them as a juvenile, and not only the information we provide to you, but in our process, until the courts adjudicate him as an adult, we treat them as a juvenile. It's not our decision to make them an adult or not. That is up to the courts.
Hi, Chief.
Yeah.
When you mentioned in your statement that some businesses and residents had been hurt by some of the inaccurate information online, can you elaborate on that, what that ended up looking like? And
Yeah.
how it's affected us?
And let me clarify, hurt business-wise is financially hurt. We haven't had any reports of assaults regarding this. But what we have had a report of is based on that misinformation. And in one case, in one of these cases, 17-year-old kid is out playing in front of his house, starts being accosted, being accused of being a murderer, threats towards that kid. And it's all because somebody put that address as a suspect address, and it was wrong. It was inaccurate. So I get emotional about it because I see my kids. I wouldn't want that to happen to them. And because of the lies and the misinformation being shared by people that, for whatever reason, are sharing that information, it's having negative impact. I believe Rachel Mitchell talked about this yesterday with Preston Lord's family. All that misinformation, it hurts the victims. It hurts our victims, regardless of what their jurisdiction is. Everyone wants justice. We can't have vigilante justice. We need people to not spread misinformation.
You just gave us a total of how many arrests have been made. However, based on the evidence, have your detectives identified about how many other suspects might be out there?
So each case is unique. We have had a few cases where it's the same suspect, but oftentimes those same suspects are with different individuals when they've committed additional crimes. But I don't have a number to give you on the total, because even as I mentioned, we're focusing on the group teen violence. We're also looking at all of our cases, and specifically teen violence and young adult cases. So while we may have a case where either we made an arrest or we're still investigating it, there are other cases, but we've identified all the ones from our initial review that are related to group teen violence. There are other, we mentioned this last week, out of all of our calls for service over the last 2 years, 0.7% were related to teen-on-teen violence. And so there are incidents, a school fight, you know, a one-on-one case, that happens. But and we still appropriately investigate those. But we're focusing on what we're talking about today is the group teen violence.
Chief, in the assault in the parking garage that your department just made an arrest on, that parking garage literally has a bunch of security cameras. It's hard to understand how these assaults can happen in a place like a garage that's city-owned, that has a bunch of security cameras, and you say, oh, we don't know who did it, we have no leads, we had no video. Your own cameras were watching it. Are those not recording?
So they're recording, they work. You may have an occasion where they don't. In that situation, that's something I'm looking into as far as that those videos were requested, and I'm trying to figure out why we did not receive them. But we have videos. We have another case at the garage where we have video, and that's one that we charged as well. So our cameras do work in both of our garages, and it was once we received that video of that incident, we were able to connect it. We did have the report, and that's why, as I mentioned, that they had asked for the videos. And that's, you know, our process improvement, looking anytime there's something like that, what can we ensure that we don't miss something like that?
All right, at this point, we're just gonna have 2 more questions. So again, just 2 more questions.
The parking garage video, I'll concentrate on that to try and keep this quick. I'm
Yeah.
also interested in how the number of individuals I asked you about the world of video, how many individuals through those videos, can you give us an idea of that? But in regard to the parking garage itself, you've arrested 2 from that parking garage video?
I'm trying to remember if it's 2 or 3.
Oh, 3? Anyway.
Yes, 3.
In that video, you've seen more than that hitting, and I'm interested in, because in many of the videos, and even in the other arrests you made, there are multiple kids who throw punches and attack. So I'm interested in how you're handling that, if you're going to go back and continue adding charges to individual videos.
So as I mentioned with that and the other arrests we made yesterday and others that we are still investigating, we are, even though we have made an arrest, we are still actively pursuing the others that are involved. And keep in mind, when you have a video like that, like a lot of these videos, there's a lot of kids there. We have to not only be able to prove that they were involved, sometimes that comes from interviews, sometimes that comes from the video itself, but we have people in the crowd. That video specifically, in and out, there's have been a lot more people in those. And so that's part of the challenge, is identifying each one of those to see, even if it's just a witness, to try to get to them and get information from them. So those cases, I won't go into further detail, but we are still, and that's why they're still active. Even though we made 3 arrests yesterday, it's still an active investigation because we are pursuing charges on additional people. I think there was one more.
Let's go, last question. I wanted to talk about the, the renters. Travis Renner, the father was arrested, unrelated in regards to drug possession. But one thing that we've heard, you mentioned a little bit today, we heard it from Queen Creek Police, is that some of the parents don't want their kids to be interviewed. The reason why I bring that up is, are you looking at Travis to possibly connect it to hiding the teen violence or anything in relation to that father not coming forward about what his child did, or preventing authorities from talking to his kids or anything like that?
So regarding our investigations, anytime we have an active investigation like that, we will look for any contributing factors to where we could either not only try to identify how or why it happened, but also is there any criminal liability upon any, regardless of who it is. And so with each investigation, we will look for additional crimes. We'll look for additional issues that potentially need to be resolved. So without getting into the particulars of any of our investigation, that's something we always do, is looking not only at the crime itself, but is there any facilitation, is there any destruction of evidence, is there anything else that goes on in that case to where we can pursue additional charges.
So it is possible he can be charged in the future?
That's not what I said. I'm saying we are looking at our cases to try to identify, not only with that case, or any other case, that are there additional suspects or additional information that we need to gather, either through interviews or through evidence collection, to be able to support probable cause against anyone else. Not specific to him, that's just a general statement to any investigation that we would do that.
Where's Travis Renner now? I haven't seen his mugshot.
So I'll take this last question. I don't know where he's at right now. We took him into custody. We then released him because we need to get some lab results before we can actually file those charges. So,
Same thing with Kiara? Or
Excuse me?
with the same thing with the 20-year-old female, Kiara?
yes. So, yeah, she was released as well after both were taken into custody and both were released. All right, thank you for being here. As I mentioned, we will continue to provide updates as we get additional. We won't wait to Thursday to give you updates, but as we get updates, we'll give you updates on any arrests that we made. We will continue to do that. We'll continue to update our teen violence webpage with additional information. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Okay, just as a little reminder, this is a